So this is about the atavist or the product. What do we do? What do we make? What do we write? This is the answer to that question. The atavist. The atavist can be found at www.atavist.com. You can create it. I would say it's a type of very simple drag and drop website that you're building. Many of you have already done this, so this is just another platform to do this again. So essentially, this is what the syllabus says about the atavist, and you can go back and read the details of it. I just want to point out a couple of things to you. You must have some sort of visual representation for every artifact. I will show you what I mean. Again, you're required to have a minimum of 5, no more than 10 artifacts that are specifically tied to the epistolary tradition, specifically speaks to the letter writing tradition. It can include those other forms of telegram or notes, but it cannot include emails per se, because again, time and space compressing is an important part of that conversation. So we're trying to examine and compare modernisms to this kind of a tradition that was originated centuries ago, but has some modern uses. So at the same time, we have to be very true to the epistolary tradition in the way that the scholars of that define it, and as we're defining it. So visual representation. Because the atavist and any other website, there is a part of it that is the narrative that you're telling with regard to your findings and the responses to those questions, which we're going to talk about more inclusively, has to have some sort of visual guide, whether it be an image, a still, a screen capture, a pull-out quote, an actual YouTube video. I'll show you in a second what I mean, and then of course a lush caption. So captions are expected to be 2 paragraphs for this particular class. It's a 300 level class, and those 2 paragraphs in the caption for all 5 of your artifacts should be responding to those 3 questions from the other screencast, the other video. Essentially, this is your analysis. This is you talking about what you found, what you discovered, and what you learned about the epistolary tradition from that particular artifact. And so because it's about that artifact, it's going to be under the artifact in a form of a caption. That's the 5 artifacts. So essentially, the first 5 artifacts are you explaining, examining, learning what is the criteria or the characteristics of this tradition. You're isolating sort of a checklist for yourself and understanding the varying forms of what is considered an epistolary tradition, because all of it is not the same, particularly if you examine it over time and you're making your arguments for what this looks like and what it's done to the writing culture. And then with regard to the book, which was born from a letter, you have a short commentary. So it would be the equivalent of 2 pages, which is very little for a 300 level course, but it's sufficient for this project. After you do the 5 artifacts, a section that's essentially your commentary on the Coates book, and how you believe that having his son as the audience or the son as the reader of this letter influenced the way that Coates delivered this message, and if you believe, or how you believe, that it influenced its connection and its impact to the rest of the world, because it's a highly celebrated book. People far beyond, audiences far beyond his son were influenced by it. And was it because or not because of the epistolary tradition that this book has such a great appeal, covering a topic that had been so widely for the last few years covered in the media, but had not been covered in the form of a letter in this way? So we are discussing in our commentary at the end of the atavist, what is it about this letter this book born from a letter, its letterness contribute to its success in connecting with such a broad audience, particularly because it was addressed literally to a teenage son. A couple of other things. There needs to be a works cited page, because obviously you're identifying artifacts. I'm not sure which ones you're going to choose, so we need to be able to know which sources that you've selected. And your in-text citations under the artifacts are important, because again, we need to know links under them. We just need to be able to connect again to your sources. So in-text citations within your 2 paragraphs and as you are writing are pretty basic for you, I know, but I just wanted to remind us we need to reveal where we got our information from. So really quickly, I want to take a look at an actual atavist and walk through an atavist. So here we have an example of an atavist that was used or put together in a different class. Of course, the topic is different, and it's essentially as advertised. It's just a website. You can have it scroll and you can set it up to do a couple of different things. This is just what this person chose to do. But what I wanted to point out to you most importantly is, like, here, this is a YouTube video, and of course here is the caption, or where those 3 questions for you would be answered. This is where your analysis, your application of the criteria that you've isolated would go. So that's here. Your discussion about this artifact goes here. Of course, this could be, in your case, the handwritten letter that you found, and your analysis of that, your 2 paragraphs, could go here. And as you can see, there's an in-text citation here within the writing that's under the specific artifact, because there's no question about what you're talking about if it falls right under there. So here is some more contextualizing text. Here's a cover of a documentary. And I just want to say, so this is discussing a full feature film, but they just took a screen capture of one scene from the film as a visual, because in this particular technology tool requires visuals, so you can set this up. The visual can be a pull-out quote. This was a documentary created by students, so this was the trailer for the documentary, and this is the discussion of the trailer. So I'm just saying these are different types of artifacts. Of course, not as applicable to us, but if you find tweets and Twitter, something from your Twitter feed that's specifically addressing the epistolary tradition and letter writing, I am not opposed to you using that, but it's really hard. So this for us would be that part of the Coates commentary. This would be the commentary for your Coates book, and that is sufficient. We are not necessarily using a conclusion, because our concluding comments would be up in the Coates discussion too, probably. But this is where you have your 500 to 550 words, and you are discussing how you have chosen to apply or isolate the criteria that you learned from the other sources to the Coates book. So you're looking at the Coates book, you're looking at how he put it together, you're looking at how he turned a phrase or constructed his ideas and thoughts, his reminiscing, his account to his son, and where is there evidence that he has turned a letter into a book? Where can you see that evidence? And examine those intersections, and try to give us some of your own ideas about why was this particular approach to this well covered, well-reported topic, but his approach in the form of a letter somehow got so much acclaim. So that is what we're doing. We are participating in this sort of analysis of modern uses of the epistolary tradition and answering the question for ourselves: is it truly dying, or are we reviving it? What are we doing with this? So this is an example of an atavist. This is one example. So you can play around with different things with the atavist. Like you can have white pages. This person chose darker pages. This is an example of a pull-out quote. You can definitely drag and drop pull-out quotes from your sources that you feel are very powerful, and they help to move your research narrative along. So this was just a scholarly journal, and this is an image from the actual journal. Obviously, you need a visual for this type of medium. So as I mentioned to you before, it's a good idea to revisit the syllabus and read the lengthier or more descriptive piece describing the bundle assignments generally. And of course, this is the section that is specifically dealing with our current assignment. Here is the deadline again. October 23rd at 11 p.m. That gives us almost half of the month of October for this assignment. And again, there are no forum discussions, no forum requirements, because we are doing a deep dive into the areas and the various areas of the bundle. I thank you so much, and I look forward to reading your work. Wow, it's going to be awesome.